Hello all, welcome to the web application pen testing course, and in this video we'll do a quick lab with netcat on how to connect to a web server and then go ahead and request the home page using HTTP 1.0 and 1.1 protocols, and also try and understand the most basic difference. So let's move on directly to the demo. There aren't any slides for this video. So let's go ahead and use netcat, which is really a kind of Swiss Army knife replacement for telnet. And let's connect to securitytube.net on port number 80. And you have my full permission to do so. And then let's issue a simple GET request. And we'll basically go ahead and use the HTTP 1.0 protocol. Right, and if you notice, we basically ended up getting the whole HTML page as expected, and the server disconnected us. So that's a ton of HTML content. Let me kind of quickly scroll up. There we go. Right, so this was the HTTP request which we did. So we typed in get / HTTP / 1.0, and then we mentioned the host to be www.securitytube.net. Now, the 1.0 protocol, from what I remember, does not mandate the host header. However, in the case of 1.1, the host header is mandatory. Now, get is what we call a request method, and we'll look at request methods in more detail in the next video. However, very simply put, get / HTTP 1.0 tells the web server that we want to fetch the home page for the website securitytube.net, or rather www.securitytube.net, and to use the HTTP 1.0 protocol to do so. The server responds back with the whole 200 OK, a couple of other header fields. So each of these lines is a header field: content type, cache control, vary, date, server, so on and so forth. And then the actual response body, which contains the HTML file. Now, the clear difference we will see while working with 1.1 will be apparent in just a second. So again, let me issue the web request, but this time for 1.1. And here we go. If you notice, we were not disconnected, right? We are still connected. And the interesting part is I can again go back and issue another request. Doesn't necessarily have to be for the same page. Of course, at times a lot of servers end up timing you out, so keep that in mind. So, I think I made a mistake. So if you notice, it says bad request, but notice it still kept me connected. So let me try and do the request right this time. This is what happens when you switch too many computers and the keyboards differ. And if you notice, we were again served the HTML page. And I could serve request for something else. So let's say get / video. I don't think this URL exists, so probably should get an error. And if it says 404 not found. But note, we are on the same TCP connection, and this is the critical difference between 1.0 and 1.1. 1.0 does not allow you more than one resource request, while in 1.1 you're allowed to ask for multiple resources in the same TCP connection. Right? And pretty much what you should have done is used connection close along with a request. So let me go back in here and let me actually clear the screen rather. And if I do the following, get slash HTTP 1.1, put the host header in www.securitytube.net, and then say connection close. Right? The web page is returned, but this time the connection gets automatically closed. And this is probably, in my view, one of the most important differences. 1.1 allows you to pipeline HTTP requests in which you can, pretty much like pump in multiple resource requests, and the server would go ahead and, service each of them. However, in the same TCP connection, right? So this would mean that a server can maintain a TCP connection for a much longer time in the case of HTTP 1.1. Now, the last thing I'd like to mention is if you went ahead and tried to do the same thing using a web browser. So let's open up the web browser on Kali. You would see something, slightly different in the sense the web browser would just go ahead and issue multiple simultaneous requests at a very fast pace. So let's say we go back to Wireshark, we start sniffing, go back here, and I type in securitytube.net, and what you would notice is that your web browser actually starts making a ton of requests. We can even type in a little filter in here. So let's say HTTP dot request, and then from there on you can pretty much go further as well. If you notice, it gives you some hints. You can say method equals get. Now if you look at the output in Wireshark, you will see that the browser automatically is doing requests for a ton of resources. Really, here is what is happening. The browser fetches the home page, parses that HTML, and whenever it sees a reference to some other file like a JavaScript file or a style sheet, it'll immediately go ahead and start fetching them as well. So you can see all the JavaScripts here, and just after that we also see all the CSSs and other small things, the skin files and all of that being requested. Right? Fantastic. So the key thing which we have learned in the last two videos is how the HTTP protocol basically functions, request response, the difference between 1.1 and 1.0, rather the most important difference, and the fact that you are pretty much allowed to do all of this manually as well, simply because HTTP is a text-based protocol at the very end. So if you ever typed in your own fake email using SMTP, you can pretty much go ahead and frame your own HTTP requests also using netcat or curl, and later on, as we will see, even modify more interesting ones using browser plugins and proxies. That's all for this video. In the next one, we will look at HTTP methods and try and understand security issues about a couple of them. Thank you very much.